Two important costumes from another one of the favorite movies that viewers today like to look at and reminisce about, and very favorite at the time, was called Dimples. And this is a beautiful black satin party dress that was worn by Shirley at the time. And when I lift it up, you can see all of the ruffles underneath, absolutely wonderful. And then a taffeta petticoat under that. And then underneath that are the little pantalettes. So it has all of the various layers of the costume and wonderful detail with a very classic kind of style that was done. At the very end of the movie, once again, adhering to the theme of we have to get something in here to allow Shirley to do a song and dance. And at the end of the movie, there is a minstrel act. And this is the costume that Shirley wore for the minstrel act, Meet Me in the Moonlight. Very wonderful, with the vest underneath, the matching vest with the rhinestone, fabulous rhinestone buttons here, and then the smaller ones there, matching pink satin top hat, pink satin stripes down the legs, even little stirrups to make sure the pants stayed on absolutely straight while she was performing the dance. And I'm going to turn this just a bit so you can see the tails at the back, how wonderful that costume actually is, and you are able to see that the rhinestone buttons are repeated and are repeated on the velvet cuffs as well. And I'm going to reach the top off so I can show you the hat a little more carefully, how wonderful that silk top hat is. Very, very firmly sided, beautifully done, and absolutely perfectly preserved. A wonderful costume from Shirley Temple's Meet Me in the Moonlight minstrel song at the end of Dimples. Again, remembering how many movies, how many important films were done by Shirley in a space of 4 or 5 years, films that are iconic in our American social culture and history. And one of the very famous people is The Little Colonel, where we have to deal with the idea of the family broken and then reunited and all of the factors that go with it. We have two fabulous costumes from that film to share with you. This is the iconic film, the iconic costume worn when Shirley was singing Love's Young Dream, when grandfather sees her brought up from the poor off house that she's been living in to come to his big house, and she's dressed in rags, and they recostume her in this wonderful costume of the time, and it is so extraordinary. Again, has the cutwork petticoat over the lace-edged hoop, and his long lace-edged pantalettes and wonderful scallop cut designs of the petals. This costume is the only one of all of them that is a bit frail because of the crisp taffeta. Just didn't hold up as well as the others, and there is some repair on it, but it's such an extraordinary and iconic costume, particularly when she performs that wonderful song, Love's Young Dream. And here is the bonnet that goes with it. She wears this in several scenes throughout the movies. After she does the song, she and grandfather decide they're going to play. He's now warmed up to her and decided they're going to play together, and she wants to know if he plays jacks, and he said, was that playing? They had to get down on the floor, and he didn't want to do that. So he brought out his toy soldiers, and the two of them played on the table with the miniature toy soldiers. A very wonderful scene. At the end of the scene, here is Shirley. The Sherman family is reunited. Now her mother has been reunited with her father, and the father with her father, and Shirley's father has come home from war, and everyone's together and everyone's happy, and they're having a party on the lawn, and this absolutely unbelievable dress is what she wore, and it is so perfectly preserved, it's unbelievable, including, look at these boots. Come on, you'd wear these today. These are so incredible with those little tassels on them. They're absolutely wonderful, and I'm going to turn the dress so you can see it all the way around. Little wrinkled crepe flowers on it, decorate. And look at the ribbons coming around, the ribbons here, the matching the sash on the sleeves, and then finally the big bow at the back with this wonderful ruffle design over the pleated tulle at the back, the pleated organza at the back. It's just absolutely wonderful. Look at how it would flare out. If you should go back after you actually see these costumes, go back and watch the movies, and you'll see how she could wear them, and you wonder, how did this costume get preserved? Well, obviously very carefully, and Mother took it home and put it in careful storage area and preserved it beautifully all these years. But to me, this is one of a really extraordinary treasure. Here going along with it is a wonderful color-enhanced photograph of Shirley taken at the time wearing this costume. In another famous scene, we don't have the gown for this one, unfortunately, but we do have, retained by the family, her original bonnet and the high-button pink shoes. This was the pink gown she wore with a little bustle in the back, the fitted gown. Very, very beautiful piece. And please look at how the hat has this wonderful shape. I don't know how you can see it dips in the front and then sort of comes up a bit in the back with the black streamers. Beautifully, beautifully styled hat with the magenta silk lining that exactly is dyed to match these wonderful high boots with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I think 12 buttons on the side of each. Great accessories. In 1938, Shirley Temple appeared in Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, based on the traditional children's book. Actually, the film itself had absolutely nothing to do with the book. It just borrowed the title and kind of the concept in a vague sort of way. But there are some wonderful costumes that appeared from here. And the first of this is the overalls with the plaid shirt. And this is just wonderful because this appeared in the piglet scene with Shirley when she arrives on the scene and she's chasing the runaway pig. It's just absolutely wonderful. She appears in that with Bill Bojangles Robinson, who was her favored tap dance partner over the years and who she credited with teaching her to tap dance. They do the tap dance together with her wearing this costume and her singing If I Had One Wish. Very, very famous costume. If you notice, the pants are they're smudged, but that is deliberate because in doing the costume design, they wanted it to look like she was out, playing around on the farm and got her costume smudged and all. In the middle is the very, very famous costume from the toy trumpet scene appearing toward the end of the movie. And Shirley leads the brigade in the toy trumpet scene with this wonderful a marquee cap, the bicorn marquee cap to match, and just everything highly stylized. Many of the uniform costumes that were made for the Shirley films were not done in the studio, but they were done by United Costumers of Los Angeles, who would provide many of the costumes to supply, and in many times they had to be returned to United Costumers, but Shirley was able to keep hers and giving us this wonderful view of the costume from the Toy Trumpet March in Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. And finally on the right is a wonderful dress, and I know this was a favorite of Shirley's, and how I know I will tell you in a moment. It appeared in Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farms when she's about to give her performance to show how talented she is, and she gets laryngitis and loses her voice and cannot sing. And if you watch the movie, you'll see the dress appear there. However, if you study all of the various publicity shots that were done about Shirley over the year at this time, you'll find, for example, that she wore this to several functions. For example, she wore it to a birthday party for FDR, one of her very favorite personal dresses, as well as being a pivotal dress in the film Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. One of Shirley's favorite movies, she often said it was her very favorite movie, was Wee Willie Winkie, directed by John Ford. John Ford did not want to work with a child actor at first. He had had problems with this in the past, but after just a short time of working with Shirley, he realized really what a consummate performer, a trooper, a real professional she was. She had wonderful costumes designed for her for that film. Again, Gwen Wakely was the head costume designer at Fox Studios, and so we can presume that she was the one responsible for most of these designs. And I have 4 of them here out of the collection. I think there are about 10 costumes from that movie that are in the entire collection. We gave you a sample here of 4 of them. I love this costume. This is I think it's very snappy and this was the midi-style costume worn by Shirley as she and her mother were arriving on the train in India, including the original hat that came with it, and the little jacket, and then the little dress underneath the jacket. Very, very lovely. This dress of rose dimity, very beautifully done with the lace bretelles on the shoulder, the puffed sleeves, wonderful lace detailed on the front. Such a seemingly dainty and feminine little dress for her to be wearing in the hot, hot India, but she wore it well and very graciously, including the wonderful, very distinctively woven bonnet. This appears in quite a few scenes throughout the movie and is just beautifully preserved. Another costume that appeared quite often in the movie is this beautiful blue polka dot dress with little tiny pin dot flakes. And having this wonderful lace on the bodice and then on the sleeves. Now, you may not recognize it immediately because very often in the movie she was shown wearing this pinafore apron over the dress, and that is included with the costume. But I wanted you to have an opportunity to see how beautiful the dress was underneath. I guess that's why a child wore a pinafore, to keep their dress really clean. And this is a beautifully constructed one as well. Probably the piece most famous out of the whole movie was her uniform costume. Shirley in the movie was very, very proud of having achieved to learn all of the military marches and the correct procedures and the correct protocol to follow. And then when she had her own uniform made for her in the film, this was great. And she wrote, and actually as a person she was so proud about it too, because she wrote that she was so proud to have her own little accessories and the jacket and the hat and the belt. But she said, I really regretted that I couldn't have a full-size costume like everyone else. Well, of course, she wasn't full-size, so they had a costume to fit. But then she went on to write, but the one thing they couldn't make smaller were the brass buttons. So I would very proudly have the same size brass buttons on my uniform that appeared on the grown-up's uniform. Great detail of accessories, of authentic buckles and the emblem on the hat. I haven't been able to figure this out. I read in one of her books that she said her hat was uniquely cut to accommodate her curls. And since I don't have one to compare it to, I don't know if this is or not. It is cut rather high in the back, so perhaps that was so. But, and then again, even having the argyle leggings and the white spats with the button tips and the leather stirrups to go on the feet. The entire costume is absolutely complete and wonderful as she wore it in the film, and just to me one of the most iconic costumes of all of the Shirley legacy. During the filming of what many of today's admirers of Shirley Temple feel was one of her finest works, The Little Princess, done in 1939, one of her last important childhood films, the talent of Gwen Wakeling as costume designer was truly tested, because her talents had to extend from doing very simple schoolgirl midi-style dresses to the most elegant gown with a sweeping long train trimmed with foxtails and satin-lined, and just an absolutely exquisite costume to this beautiful, elegant silk bathrobe with fur edging, to the wonderful ballerina costume with matching shoes, ballet shoes, and the silver metallic emblem on the front, to this absolutely exquisite costume in which she is seen arriving on the set in the blue woolen coat with the matching buttons and the white fur collar with all sorts of little foxtail trim, and the matching blue velvet bonnet with rose trim. It's a wide variety of costumes, of which there are perhaps 10 of them in the collection from this movie. So you can see the wonderful skills that were put to work in creating different styles of costume. One of the problems that Gwen Wakeling was confronted with at this point is that they were still trying to present Shirley Temple as a young girl rather than a young lady, and so they had to find this fine point of fitting the clothes to her in a way that would be very elegant, very gracious, but still very, very youthful. And they were hard costumes to design, and I think everyone who looks at them agreed that that exquisite work was done by this talented designer and worn well by Shirley, because in this movie it is considered some of the finest work that she did.